So we have this parallel postulate then that says for any line L, we can construct a parallel line through it. So the parallel postulate says through a point P, not on line L, there's exactly one line parallel to line L. So we have a line and a point. There's exactly one line that's parallel to the given line through that one point. So we're trying to decide if the lines are parallel. So they tell us angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. So we recognize that angle 3 and angle 5 are alternate interior angles and they are congruent. So that means yes, the lines are parallel by the converse of the alternate interior angles theorem. So we're given this picture here. We're told that measure of angle 4 is x plus 20 degrees, and the measure of angle 8 is 2x plus 5 degrees, and then the x is 15. So we should already recognize angle 4 and angle 8 should be corresponding angles, and we know that corresponding angles should be congruent, so we're going to try to test this. So the measure of angle 4 here is x plus 20, while x is 15. So that means the measure of angle 4 is going to be 35 degrees. Measure of angle 8, 2 times x, which is 15 plus 5. Well, 2 times 15 is 30. 30 plus 5 is 35 degrees. So that means angle 4 and angle 8 are congruent, and they're also corresponding, which we already said. So are the lines parallel? Yes. It's by the converse of corresponding angles theorem. So because they are congruent and corresponding, that means the lines have to be parallel. All right, so if we're saying measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 6 is 180 degrees. So because they add up to 180, they're supplementary. And then they also happen to be same side interior angles. So can we say that they are parallel? Yes. The converse of same side interior angles postulate. If we know angle 2 and angle 6 are congruent, well, we recognize they are congruent because they're telling us that. And then we know based on their location that they should be corresponding. So are the lines parallel? Yes, by the converse of corresponding angles theorem. So how are the converses in this lesson different from the postulates and theorems in the previous lessons? The hypothesis and the conclusion are switched. So again, big idea here was if before we said if the lines are parallel, then these relationships will happen. Today, what we're saying is if these relationships are happening, then the lines have to be parallel. So we're switching the hypothesis and the conclusion. Suppose two lines are cut by a transversal such that alternate interior angles are both congruent and supplementary. So if we think about it, you've got two lines cut by a transversal, alternate interior angles. They're congruent and supplementary. Supplementary means they add to 180. So if they're congruent, they should be the same, and they add to 180. So essentially, we're adding something to itself. Should add up to 180. So our angle should be 90 degrees. Well, if two lines are intersecting at right angles, then they're going to be perpendicular. Going to be perpendicular lines. So we want to name two ways to test if a pair of lines is parallel using the interior angles formed by transversal crossing two lines. So we could either use alternate interior angles or same side interior if we're specifically just talking about the interior angles. One thing, as we look at your homework tonight, there's a similar, the first problem is very similar to one of the examples here where we're supposed to be given some statements and then write some conditional statements and converses, but they don't give you the values. So I'm going to write them out for you here. The first thing they tell you, this one they do give you, lines L and M are parallel. The next thing should be measure of angle 6 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180 degrees. Next thing, angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. And then the last one is angle 4 congruent to angle 6. So you'll use these statements on the first problem on your homework. As usual, email if you have any questions. I'll make sure the keys are on Canvas for this. Have a good rest of your day.